Look, I don't tell this one much. Buy me another shiner and I'll give you the whole thing, but you don't get to ask me to repeat parts. I tell it once. That's it. 22 years I spent underwater. IMK Class 4 saturation diver, certified hyperbaric welder, Gulf of Mexico, North Sea, couple jobs offshore West Africa when the money was right. I've done bell runs to 300 meters in the North Sea in January when the current was running 2 knots and the viz was 0. I've welded pipe in heliox at 23 bar with my hands so cold I couldn't feel the electrode holder. You do that work long enough, you learn to trust your instruments. You learn that the ocean follows rules, hard rules. Pressure, temperature, density. The math works or you die. This was 2011. DSV, Dorado Horizon. Sitting on DP over Mississippi Canyon Block 481. 2814 North, 8937 West. About 90 miles south of Port Fourchon. We were on a Chevron decommissioning contract, pulling an old subsea Christmas tree at 218 meters. Tree had been shut in for 3 years after the well was plugged and abandoned. Routine job: cut the jumpers, recover the valves, document everything for the regulatory package. 28-day rotation, and I was on day 12. The SAT system was a DRAS 18-man spread, 3 chambers, 6 bunks each. 2 diving bells on a shared trunk line running through the moon pool. Good system. I'd worked it before on a job in the North Sea, same vessel. The bell was a TUP configuration. Transfer under pressure, which means we lock onto the trunk, pressurized to storage depth, and the winch lowers us through the moon pool on a guide wire. My dive partner was Eddie Rise. Cajun kid out of Houma. 14 years in SAT, steady hands, didn't talk much on the bottom, which is exactly what you want. We were on Bell Run 7 that day, tasked with cutting a 4-inch hydraulic jumper off the tree's east side. Standard hot work. I ran the cutting torch, Eddie handled the rigging and the lift bag. 3 hours bottom time. Clean cuts, clean recovery, the kind of dive you forget by dinner. Bell recovery started at 1642. Winch system hauls us up. Cursor lock engages at the moon pool. Bell seats on the trunk. That's when the dive supervisor's voice came over comms. He said, "Hold on the recovery, stand by." Now Dave Thibodeau, that was the dive super. Dave didn't pause bell recoveries. Man ran his deck like a clock. If Dave said hold, something was off. 30 seconds, a minute. Eddie and I just sitting in the bell, still at storage pressure, looking at each other. Then Dave came back on. Bell weight is reading high. We're checking the load cell. The load cell is just a strain gauge on the winch wire. Measures the suspended weight of the bell. Ours was rated for the SWL on the Lars system, calibrated every shift. Standard operating procedure. Bell run 7, 2 divers, tools, umbilicals, bailout gas. Total weight should have been 4,500 kilograms. Give or take 20 for the gas balance. Load cell was reading 4840, 340 kilograms over. Dave sent the ROV around for a look. Schilling UHD, good camera, good lights. Pilot did a full 360 of the bell hull, skids to crown. Nothing. No debris, no marine growth, no fouled rigging. Hull was clean as the day it was painted. They recalibrated the load cell against reference weights. It read true. It had been reading true the whole time. We recovered, transferred into chamber 2 through the trunk. Dive Med Tech did his checks. Eddie and I were fine. Everything was fine. Dave logged it as an instrumentation anomaly. Signed the dive log. Moved on. I tried to move on too. Ate dinner in the chamber. Reheated jambalaya, if you're wondering, because the galley was good on the Dorado. Played cards with Eddie. Read half a chapter of some paperback. But when I closed my eyes in my bunk that night, I kept seeing the number. 4840, because I'd done the math. 340 kilograms is 750 pounds. That's roughly the weight of a grown man. In full dive gear. Helmet, harness, bailout bottle. like someone else had come up in the bell with us, and I'd done a lot of bell runs. I'd never once seen a load cell be wrong. Next morning, bell run 8. Different pair, Tommy Ardoin and Mateus Silva. Tommy was an old hand out of Morgan City, maybe 18 years in. Mateus was Brazilian, former Petrobras diver, quiet, professional. They were pulling a 3-inch wing valve off the tree's production bore. Different job, different divers, different shift. Bell went down at 06:15. 3.5 hours bottom time. Valve came off clean. Bell recovery started at 1000. Load cell read 4840. 340 kilos over. Same number. Not close to the same number. The same number to the kilogram. Now I was in the chamber when Dave's voice came over the intercom. He didn't sound alarmed. Dave never sounded alarmed. But he sounded careful, like a man choosing his words because someone was writing them down. Chamber 2. This is surface. Be advised, we are running diagnostics on the Lars. Recovery is paused. Stand by. Eddie looked at me across the card table. Didn't say anything. Didn't have to. The OIM got involved after that. Offshore installation manager, the man whose name goes on the incident report. He authorized an unmanned bell run. Send the bell down empty. No divers, no tools, just the bell on the wire. See what happens. Bell went down at 1430. Empty weight on the load cell, 4,100 kilograms. ROV followed it the entire descent. Shilling UHD again, never more than 4 meters off the bell. 218 meters to the seabed. Bell sat at bottom for 20 minutes. ROV circled it the whole time. Camera footage showed nothing. Sonar showed nothing. Current was running at half a knot from the southwest, nominal for the area. Bell recovery started at 1520. Load cell at surface, 4440. 340 kilograms. Again, on an empty bell. ROV footage was reviewed frame by frame. Nothing approaches the bell. Nothing enters the moonpool trunk. And yet something that weighs exactly 340 kilograms is riding that bell back to the surface. Or, and this is what Dave wouldn't say out loud, the bell itself now weighs more than when it was built. That's when the chamber started going wrong. Chamber 2 pressure had been holding steady at 23 bar, our storage depth equivalent, 218 meters. Standard Heliox mix, 12% oxygen, 88% helium, partial pressure of O2 at 0.4 bar. Life support tech monitored it every 2 hours. At 1800, the pressure read 23.3 bar, 0.3 over the set point. Shouldn't happen. That system is closed loop with redundant bleed valves. The life support tech, a Brit named Gareth, checked every seal, every valve, every penetration on chamber 2. Nothing. No leak, no ingress. The gas had simply increased. As if there was more of it. Eddie told Gareth the mix tasted thick. Now, Heliox doesn't taste like anything. That's one of the first things you learn in SAT school. Helium is inert and odorless, and at 23 bar, your taste buds are already half numb from the pressure. Gareth ran a full gas chromatograph analysis. O2 at 0.4 bar. Helium balance. CO2 nominal. Nothing wrong with the gas. But Eddie kept licking his lips like he was trying to get something off them. The chamber temperature dropped, 2 degrees below the set point, which doesn't sound like much until you realize the electric heaters in a SAT chamber can compensate for a 15-degree ambient swing. 2 degrees shouldn't even register as a problem. But the heaters were maxed, and the temperature wouldn't come back. Then the vibrations started, low, maybe 4 or 5 hertz, below what you'd call a sound, more like a pressure in your jaw. Like standing next to a diesel generator that's running slightly off balance, except we were in a sealed pressure vessel. There was no machinery touching chamber 2 that could produce that frequency. Dave called on shore. Chevron dispatched a marine surveyor on the next crew boat. Job paused. Bell run suspended, which meant we were stuck. 23 bar of heliox between us and the surface. You don't rush decom, you'll bend a man and kill him. That night, I woke up at 0300, dead quiet. The vibration had stopped, and somehow that was worse. Like the engine you'd been hearing for days just cuts out, and now you're listening for what comes next. Then I heard Eddie, in the bunk below me, talking in his sleep. Soft, rhythmic, like he was reciting something, in Portuguese. Eddie Reyes spoke English and Louisiana French. That's it. The man couldn't order a beer in Spanish, but I recognized the cadence. Because Mateus Silva, who was sealed in Chamber 3, separated from us by 2 pressure doors and 40 feet of steel, Mateus spoke Portuguese when he prayed. Chevron's Marine surveyor arrived the next afternoon. Young guy, clipboard. Spent 4 hours reviewing the dive logs and the ROV footage. His conclusion, instrumentation anomaly. Recommended continuing operations. The client signed off on one more bell run. The production master valve regulatory package required it for the well sign-off. Without it, the contract didn't close. I volunteered. I don't know why. 13 years later, I still don't know why. Maybe I needed to see it. Maybe that's the diver in me. When instruments start lying, something in your brain says, go look. Eddie wouldn't go. First time in 14 years. Nobody said a word about it. Tommy Ardoin partnered with me. Bell run 10. Locked on, pressurized, winch lowered us through the moon pool at 0700. 218 meters. Seabed looked normal. Gray mud, shell hash, the Christmas tree sitting in its mattress. We started on the master valve, cutting torch on the flange bolts. 40 minutes in, my helmet light caught something on the tree. The pressure gauges, on the production bore and the annulus side. Borden tube gauges, mechanical, no power required, but they read 0 on a dead system. They'd been reading 0 on every ROV survey for 3 years. Production bore, 218 bar, annulus, 12 bar. The system was dead, plugged and abandoned. There was nothing in those lines to create pressure. And the production bore reading, 218 bar, that was our depth. Our storage pressure, as if the tree was measuring us. I didn't call it in. I looked at Tommy. He was working the rigging, head down, 8 meters away. Hadn't seen it. I took a breath and finished the valve. Bell recovery, ascending through the water column. At 180 meters, the water outside the viewport changed. I've made hundreds of bell runs. I know what water looks like at every depth. At 180 in the Gulf, you're above the permanent thermocline. The light shifts, scattering increases. You can see particulate. Normal. This wasn't that. The water was dense. Not turbid, dense. Like looking through glass that's been poured too thick. The Bell's external Amenco Spinner 2 floods. 20,000 lumens combined. Their light didn't scatter. It stopped. 6 meters out, the light just ended. A clean edge, like the water had a wall. At 140 meters, I checked my Kirby Morgan 37 SS depth gauge. It read 218 meters. We'd been ascending for 6 minutes. The Bell's own gauge read 140. 2 instruments in the same space, 3 feet apart, giving different answers. And my gauge, the one strapped to my body, measuring the pressure on my chest, it said I'd never left the bottom. We surfaced. Bell weight 5180, 680 kilograms over. Double the differential. Something had doubled. Transfer into chamber 2. The moment I stepped through the trunk, I felt it. Not on any gauge. In my legs, like gravity had been adjusted by 2%, not enough to see, enough to feel the floor was wrong. Chamber pressure, 23.6 bar. The vibration was back, audible now, everyone heard it. That night, 0200, lying in my bunk, the vibration stopped, and in the silence I heard water. Not the sea outside, not the ballast tanks. Water inside the chamber wall. Between the inner hull and the outer hull, the insulation space. Water was in there, and it was rising. I could hear it climbing, inch by inch, surrounding us. I got up, walked to the main lock door. Small porthole, 8 inches across, thick glass. Outside was dry. But the inside had condensation. Humidity in the chamber was supposed to be controlled. I looked at the condensation. There were marks in it, not drip marks. Lines, numbers. 28 degrees, 14.3 minutes north. 89 degrees, 37.1 minutes west. The exact coordinates of the Christmas tree, written on the inside of the glass in a sealed pressure vessel, by no one. I rode out 5 days of decompression without sleeping. When they cracked the outer lock at Port Fortune, I walked off the Dorado horizon and drove straight to Galveston. The vessel finished the job with a replacement crew. I requested the dive log for runs 7 through 12, was told it had been filed, couldn't be located. I weigh myself every morning, same scale, same time. Have for 13 years, 91.2 kilograms, every morning, even after I lost 15 pounds from a stomach virus in 2018. Even after I stopped eating for a week, just to check, 91.2, because that's what the scale said the day I came out of saturation. And whatever rode that bell up from 218 meters decided that was the right number. Yeah, I'll take one